Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host, Terry, and today talking about the Buffalo Bills versus Cincinnati Bengals game. And I talked in an episode yesterday of Out of Bounds just about something that was really not about football. It was more about society and how we are as humans in this society and how we react. Today we're talking about the actual NFL and football and all that. And as I said before, look, I'm not with this whole you can't talk about it, even in the moment. Like it's silly to me. And that kind of goes to my first part of this discussion, which we're mainly going to talk about what do they do going forward, but talking about what happened that night. To me, it is absolutely ridiculous for the NFL and the Bengals, the Bills, or anybody else to try to sit here and say they were not trying to figure out how to play that game. And the reason I connect that to my first statement is because everyone's saying that you can't think or talk about anything else right now is so ridiculous because they took a long time to discuss. And if you're the NFL, even if you're the Bills or the Bengals, what is there to discuss besides playing the game? Because DeMar was transport. That's taken care of. Those logistics are done. That's the medical team. We know what that is. The only discussion there to be had is about the players and coaches. Number one, the Bills, I think, more so than the Bengals. How do y'all feel? What do y'all want to do? Do y'all want to play? To a lesser extent, like I said, the Bengals, how do y'all feel? Do y'all want to play? And then it's going over the options. That's all it is. Like there was nothing else for the league to go back and forth with the two coaches and for the teams to go back and forth with except playing. And so I asked, what does talking about resuming the game or rescheduling the game, how does that in any way impact DeMar's recovery? So all these people jumping bad on the internet and all this stuff about you can't talk and think about that or let's get out of here. It's silly. And obviously, I know it's silly and we all know it's silly because everybody is now, first of all, they were already talking about it the next day. So everybody wanted to jump on Skip Bayless, who I do not like at all, but they want to jump on his tweet and take it out of context and get mad at him. But then literally the same people doing the same exact thing the next day. So anyway, and again, really wasn't the same because as Skip said, it all seems so insignificant or irrelevant right now. But he was asking out loud the same question everybody's talking about on their news shows. What do you do with this game? And yes, that was one of the thoughts I've had in the moment. Like, what are they going to do with this? Because like this, and again, I will say I'm not going to disrespect anybody that believes in the power of energy and prayer and all that stuff. I not discounting that, but I'm talking about tangibly what was talking about rescheduling the game going to change about DeMar's recovery. He was in the hands of the professionals, and that's all that could do. So you're talking about over an hour of discussion. There was no discussion besides rescheduling the game. There was nothing else to talk about. I don't care what anyone says. It just doesn't happen. So 100%, everybody was trying to figure out if they were going to play that game that night. And then they were hearing from the NFL, what are the alternatives? Because I'm pretty sure that's the first thing. Some players want to play, some don't, whatever. Okay, well, if we don't, coach, what is the alternative? Do we get an hour break? Do we come back and play on Tuesday? Like, what does this all look like? And I'm sure everybody from the NFL to those two teams were going over the options. That's what they were doing. So for the NFL to sit here and say, or any Bills, all of them say, we never had one thought about this game is a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. Because once again, the procedures for these things, even though this is unprecedented, are set up. the medical staff on site, all that, the transport, all that, the route, all that is practice routine. That stuff is done. So what was the NFL doing? What were the execs doing? What were the coach, like nothing they could do directly affected DeMar. So clearly they were talking about the game. So the bold-faced lie they haven't talked or thought about it is just a complete lie. So now that we're getting towards the aftermath and people are discussing the effects, it's like, okay, well, what do we do with this game? And I think it's a great question. I don't know if there's a good answer to it, because all of the options are tough. Number one, of course, you can just skip the game. A lot of people are saying that just skip the game, doesn't count on their record. They got one game less than everybody else. Obviously, with the playoff race, when the number one seed being so wide open going into week 18, well, we don't know how wide open would have been. Obviously, this game against the Bengals would have told us more, but still kind of up. And then the Chiefs are in the number one seed right now just because they have more wins than the Bills. And so for them to have one less game, obviously there's an impact. Even if you do by win percentage, there's still an impact just because they have more total wins. And so that is going to put the Chiefs ahead. And that's going to hurt Bills or Bengals' potential chance at number one seed, which of course is not only home field advantage, but also a bye in the first week. And so there's that. Number two, give them both a tie. Now, it's the same issue you have with not counting it on their record as far as hurting their chances. Because these is different if it was two teams. If this was Green Bay and Detroit, week 18, it'd be different. They were fighting to get into that last playoff spot. But these are two teams that are top. They're already locked in. They already clinched their division. They're going to be there. They're fighting for the number one seed, and so that win really matters. So that you still have the same issue if it's a tie. The other issue is it just feels a little unfair because yes, the Bengals were winning at the time. And so it's tough to be like, okay, it's just a tie. Even if they agree to it, it just feels a little unfair. The third option is to replay the game. And the tough part is just when do you replay the game? And it's tough now because not only did they not play right after, but also they said they're not considering playing this week. Obviously, it's for optics. To me, I think that's what happened in this whole situation. I don't even think it was a decision of we can't figure it out or people refusing to play. I think really what it was is as time went on, and again, that's what everybody in hindsight is trying to attack everybody because, oh, we know what the right answer is. But in the moment, as we were all sitting there live and tweeting and all that, nobody understood 10 minutes in what to do. And so I think as you get 45 minutes in, the league was like, we can't. The optics are too bad. So now they said we're not going to play this week. Well, that pretty much means you can't play next week because they already got games. So then they would have to play an extra game and delay the playoffs, or they would have to play two games in a week, which I don't think anybody is looking for. So it's that one is really tough too. Obviously, it seems like the most fair, but given the timing, it's really tough. And then I guess there's the other option to just say the Bengals won because they were winning at the time of stoppage. And obviously that feels unfair because we were still in the first quarter. So none of these options are great. This is week 18, and a lot of people, me, myself included, you think back to the COVID year and how they switched so much around. But at the same time, it's not as easy the further you go along. And so we are in the last week with the playoffs scheduled and with the Super Bowl scheduled to start at a certain time. That's just tough. Now, obviously, there are some other options too. I'm sure people are creative, but in general, those are the main options. And I don't know that I have a favorite, but I think if it's me, if I'm Goodell, depending on just because now the thing we don't know is what the discussion was that night. We don't know how people felt. Everybody's going to say the right things, but we don't know how people actually felt. I think if the Bengals and Bills were equally as, defending that we're not playing and we don't care about this game, then and this is terrible. Not terrible. I don't think it's terrible, but it sounds bad. I get it. It's tough to say they kind of made a choice, but they kind of did. And it's not to say that you need to play right now or you got nothing else. No, if everybody has decided that like we're not doing this week, we can't do it all, then that's the decision. Like the NFL can't just, this isn't again a random game in week 8. We're talking about pushing up against the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl, and you're talking about multi millions of dollars and all that. And as much as I'm hoping for a recovery, as much as everybody's hoping for a recovery for DeMar, it's just it is not going to. They're not going to move millions and dollars of money for this. They're just not going to. And so, as much as, again, people want to say the right things, we know when it comes down to it how businesses get down. So, I just don't know that you had the logistics to switch things around. And to me, again, not that anybody chose for anyone to get hurt or anything, not anybody wants that. But if they made a collective decision that, hey, we aren't going to perform, then that's fine with me. That's perfectly fine with me. And also I think that makes me lean towards the we just don't count this game and then deal with the consequences. And I have no clue what the Bills or Bengals, and I'm sure obviously it's thousands of people in the organization, so they feel differently. But I don't know what the main people feel, the top players, the captains, the head coach, the GM, the owner. I don't know what they feel. If they all feel like, hey, this was a terrible situation. We're just going to move forward and, we'll take the consequence of it because it was more important to everybody's mental health in that moment to just forget about that game. And if that's how they all feel, like I said, then, it's still a tough situation, but you go ahead with that decision. But all of these decisions, I think, are really tough, and I don't know that there's a great one. So that's how I feel about it. But everybody else, let me know how you feel. Go down in the comment section, get the conversation started, share it around, thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.